Rev up your engines! Okay, here's a 95 Toyota Celica Gt4, imported from Japan. About the only place you get them because they sold most of them in Japan, a few in England, a few in Australia, a few in the Far East. Relatively inexpensive car to get these days if you know what you're doing. He found it in Florida at this place. Now the owner's a trusting man. He just bought it a few months ago and he didn't go down to Florida. He looked on the video and thought, oh, I'll get it. Well, in his defense, it is a Toyota, and it's only got like 80,000 miles on it. They go by kilometers in Japan, of course. That's nothing on a Toyota. It's all-wheel drive and it's turbocharged. People say, oh, Scotty, you're always wooing about turbocharging. Well, not in this case. Realize that the first mass-produced turbocharged Japanese car was made by Toyota. It was a Toyota Supra. They've been making turbocharged cars for quite some time. They're all made in Japan, but this one was sold in Japan too, as you can see here. And of course, the right-hand drive, that's a giveaway too. Now, it's a standard transmission, but it's also all-wheel drive. Toyota knows what they're doing when they make all-wheel drives. They don't have problems with these things. In order to get into these rally things, at one point in time, they had to make 5,000 production models to be available to go into the competition, and then later they swapped it to 2,500, and then guess what? Then they made 2,500 of them a year. Almost all of them went to Japan, some went to England, Australia, but they're a rare bird to find, and they're starting to become collector's items. Now, being a twin-entry turbo, this thing's got twice the horsepower of my Celica, even though they're basically the same car. You can see it's still got a timing belt, even though it's all in Japanese. Same basic setup, except, of course, it's got a turbocharger. Now, these Toyota 2-liter 4-cylinder engines were overbuilt anyway, so they have no problems holding a turbocharger. It's not like the things are going to fall apart like a Chinese motorcycle. These things are well made, they're solid, they can take the boost, and it's not an insane boost. You might think, what the heck is 239 horsepower? In a little car like this, it's got more than twice of what mine has, and mine's fun to drive around. These are a hoot. Just remember, if you're going to buy one of these are rally cars, all-wheel drive cars. They're not drift cars, and they're certainly not burnout cars. You can burn out with them, but you're going to destroy the transmission and the clutch extremely quickly with an all-wheel drive system. Believe me, they're for rally, they're for fun. Don't start running around doing burnouts with one of these, you'll destroy it. You get in, it's the same as mine, except you're on the other side. Nice solid door. The gauges don't even look the same other than this turbo boost gauge, of course. Except they're on the wrong side. There's nothing over here. Granted, this does take getting used to because I shift with my right hand. Now I gotta shift with my left hand. Good thing I'm left-handed. You say it wouldn't be that big of a deal because I drive motorcycles and I shift with my left or my right foot depending on what kind of a motorcycle it is. But it takes a little getting used to shifting with your other hand. You get used to it. Thank goodness the pedals aren't backwards. They're still the same. You got an accelerator, a brake, and a clutch. If they had been different, forget it. I had a friend once who let me drive his old Harley Davidson. It was one of those crazy ones where, believe it or not, when you let go of the clutch, that put it in neutral. And when you stepped on the clutch, that engaged the clutch. I tried driving that and I ran into a bush. I got off and said, I'm never driving another one of these again. That was too far to go. Being a GT4, it's got disc in the front and in the back. It doesn't have those cheesy little drums in the back like mine does. Listen to it. Heck, it sounds a lot better than mine too. Now, of course, since it's a rally car, check it out. Lots of adjustments. You can adjust the suspension. Now, he put this racing radiator in himself. He was smart. You want the biggest radiator possible to cool any turbocharged car. And where we go backwards? No backup camera on this baby. Well, here we are in our straightaway. Let's see what this thing can do. This is a fun car for driving. It is a bit rough riding because realize this is a rally car and it's an old rally car. It's gonna be bumpy, but it handles like a dream with that all-wheel drive. Now, of course, they were made in Japan, so what if they got a lot of Japanese writing on them? Who cares? You get all kinds of information for these cars. And even though they weren't imported in the United States, getting parts from them isn't that big of a deal because they're so popular. But if you're wise and take my advice, you get them as toys. Don't get them as everyday drivers, because if something does break, it might be a few weeks before you can get parts or something. This isn't like a plain Jane Celica, where you can go and get a starter or an alternator at O'Reilly Harley or a high-low in 5 seconds. Some of these things you'll have to wait a little while for, but that's the joy owning a rally car. You play around with them. Because if you really think about it, how can you buy a car that's this old, that looks this good, for a small amount of money? He paid $16 for it. As I've been saying, there are a bunch of very reputable guys who import Japanese cars. They go to Japan. The ones I know, they speak Japanese. They go and buy these things. Understand, Japan is a small country and it's very mountainous. So there's a lot less roads than there are, say, even in Texas. So they don't drive their cars much. You get a car that's this old and it's got the equivalent of like 79,000 miles on it. And in the United States, you wouldn't believe it. But in Japan, believe it or not, there's thousands of cars like these. Guys go over there, buy them, they import them in, and then they sell them to people. This thing is pretty worth exactly or more than he paid for the thing now, and they're only appreciating in value. It's always the law of limited supply. They only made a few thousand of these. They didn't import hardly any of them ever in the United States. So you get one over here, they're like hen's teeth. The people that want them, they will pay whatever they feel they want to pay to get their hands on one. They know they're not throwing their money away, and since it's a Toyota, it's not like the guy the other day where I filmed. He bought an Audi and it was a $72,000 car. He got it with $26,000 with only 26,000 miles on it. But it's a modern Audi. It's going to be a money pit when it gets to be 8 or 10 years old, and it will cost a fortune. These don't. They don't turn into money pits. It's not even a bad investment. I know guys that are buying some of these things up, including the S2000 Hondas that are real popular. They just buy them up and they store them. They said, hey, we're going to make a lot more money than sticking in the stock market, which can collapse. These cars aren't going to collapse. They're just sitting there. And of course, just like my Celica, glass. Not this cheap plastic crap that modern cars are made of. Nice, solid glass. Fog lamps are glass too. You don't have to worry about plastic fading. I mean, it's got a plastic bumper. They all did back in the day. Actually, it makes them less weight so they can zip around a little bit faster. But the car itself is all metal, just the bumper in the front and the back that's plastic. They were solid made cars and they didn't sell that many of them. The only reason Toyota really made them was because they wanted to get into the rally business. So they built 5,000 of them a year so they can meet the specs of the racing commission, and then they could take them in, and they are very good rally cars. They're probably going to appreciate in value quite a bit in the future. If you got a chance to buy one like he did at that kind of price, now's the time to do it because it's too late. I'd say with the S2000 Hondas, it's probably already too late. These are even rarer because they never sold them in the United States. So if you want to get one and you don't mind a right-hand drive, mind you, try that out first. It's a good thing they are rally cars and not race cars. Because if you're racing around on the wrong side, I see more right-hand drive cars getting front-end wrecks or slamming into trees, taking a corner wrong. It really makes a difference when you're passing people on the right side of the steering column. But who knows, maybe you're going to move to the British Virgin Islands or even the U.S. Virgin Islands. They drive on the other side of the road too. Except in the U.S. Virgin Islands, it's kind of bizarre. They drive on the other side of the road, but almost every car is a left-hand drive because the closest place to get cars is Florida. So there's all these people running around with their steering wheel on the wrong side, driving on the wrong side of the road. They did try to switch it to the American left-hand side, but what happened was the people were used to driving on the right, they kept wrecking, so they went back to driving on the other side. But almost all the cars, even in the U.S. Virgin Islands, are left-hand drive, but they're driving on the wrong side of the road. They're driving on the left side. When you pass people, you can't see. I drove there, and let me tell you, from now on, I take taxis whenever I go there and let someone else do the driving. I'll drink the rum, and they can drive me around. So if you're looking for a fun rally car, hey, these things are fun. You can get them at a reasonable price if you find a good guy who imports them, and you can get the reliability of a Toyota. You really can't beat that. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Aaron says, I have a 2011 Honda Accord V6, 100,000 miles. Recently, a mechanic says the engine oil is leaking on the alternator. He recommends changing the valve cover gasket for $600. Should I do it or can I wait? All right, here's the problem. You got a V6 engine. The front gasket is real easy, but the back gasket, you got to pull the intake manifold off, and that's why it's a $600 job. Now, if it really is leaking on your alternator, you need to get it done because it will destroy the alternator. Now let's say it was the gasket that's easy to get to that's dripping on the alternator. You could replace that easily. That takes 20 minutes. And then change that and leave the other one. But if it's leaking on the backside one that's dripping on the alternator, you really want to fix it sooner or later because it will ruin the electronics of the alternator. I have seen that happen over time. And it costs a lot because it's a bad design. If that was a 4-cylinder Honda, I could do it in 20 minutes. But the V6s, no. The backside, you got to take the intake. It's a big job. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.